knew somewhat about her depression, probably around 4 or 5 years into knowing one another, but not about the severity of it, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Zara, when was it that you first realized within yourself that I'm not happy? Or see, this is now my assumption that being depressed, when a person is depressed, they know, okay, acha, I'm not happy. When was it when you realized that I am depressed? What made you think?
Meher, I don't think you come up with that term, depressed. I think we use that term far more easily now than we did, let's say, 20 years ago. Because now depressed is a very common term that everybody, including my 12-year-old, uses. I'm feeling depressed. But it's a very serious medical term, and it's another now. It's interchangeably being used for I'm feeling low, or today I'm feeling it's being used more as an adjective to describe your mood rather than a condition. Right? So it's actually a condition, and it's not necessarily a mood. So for me, I was not able to diagnose myself as depressed on my own. I knew that I was feeling very, very, like I would get very emotional. I would get very angry. I would cry a lot. In fact, everybody used to call me a crybaby when I was growing up, and I was like, why am I being? Because I would just cry a lot and cry incessantly, Usman, if you remember. And people were like, "Tum itna roti ho, tum har baat pe roti ho, roti chali jati ho." But those were early signs, really. Now that I look back, I'm like, those were actually signs. And it was not till I went in for analysis and I went in to see a psychologist that I realized that I had periods of being clinically depressed. It was,
Yeah. Zara says that she used to cry incessantly. When those crying bouts would come on, what were your thoughts? Would you sort of, I mean, if I cry now, my husband will be like, yaar, bas kar do, yaar, ab to, enough is enough. But what was your sort of reaction? Were you puzzled? I mean, generally speaking, जब कोई रोता है हमारे मुआशरे में देते हैं कि या तो शादी करा दो या पता नहीं, बच्चा और पैदा कर दो ठीक हो जाएंगे. What was your reaction to her bouts of crying? How did you handle it? Seeing someone that you love in so much pain for an unknown reason.
Are we talking about pre-marriage or post-marriage?
Pre-marriage.
Okay. So pre-marriage, I think initially when I saw Zara crying and whenever she did cry, obviously my first response would be, "Maine to nahi kuch kiya."
Yeah.
So once we're done with that, then I have had the privilege of living abroad for the first 11, 12 years of my life. So I predominantly went to co-educational schools. So I was able to interact with girls as well in school. So when she did have her crying bouts, then yes, at times when they were, quite when the tears were flowing tremendously, then of course, I was taken aback by it, and I do my best to comfort her. I just thought that she was just a very emotional person.
Yeah. I mean, it's very simple that, even now with all this conversation about mental illness, when people say कि I'm depressed, अभी भी लोग कहते हैं कि जी ड्रामा कर रहे हैं या बस वो तो जी sensitive से लोग हैं, which is not exactly true, because it just means that it's often a cry for help. Would I be wrong in saying that, Zara?
Absolutely. I think one of the first things people, especially if you're a woman, they'll say, "Oh, are you PMSing?
Yes.
Is it you must be PMSing. It must be your time of the month." And I find that quite offensive because I'm like, okay, sure, yes, we all women do PMS, and it's a completely hormonal situation where you do feel more you do feel more emotional than normal, and but to equate that with depression, or to equate that with um, you know um, to equate that with, what I'm trying to say is that the first thing that they point out
Yeah,
is that you're PMSing. And, but
sure.
sorry, what was your question? I've gone a little
I was
off
just
track.
saying that, when people cry, they just sort of say that you're sensitive, say hey, log, and that's it. In your video, you said that you were diagnosed, the medication that was given to you was Prozac. Now,
Yes,
Prozac, I mean, you've been taking that for a long, long time.
yes.
Did it help you, Zara, at that time, even after when you got married? Did it help you?
It's a very difficult question, in retrospect, but I believed at that point that it was helping me. That's why
Yeah.
I took it. I actually thought कि इसके बगैर मेरा गुजारा नहीं है. I was very
Mm,
low. I went through back-to-back pregnancies, three pregnancies.
yes.
And uske under, I lost one, I had two, and they were all a
I'm
year,
so sorry.
literally a year apart. So during that, thank you. During that day, I was on Prozac, and the Prozac helped me um, cope with the pregnancies and be able to have a pregnancy, go through my, well, I wouldn't even make it to full term, because I would just make it to the first day of the ninth month for both my children. Because of my mental condition, it had such an adverse effect on
Yeah.
my physical condition that I would get physically very, very sick. But the
Yeah.
Prozac did help me, and I did do all my research. What is the safest drug that I can take? What is the safest drug that I can take while being pregnant, for my child and myself, that keeps me sane and that lets my pregnancy remain?
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Zara, it's very interesting that you said that you did your research. Did the gynecologist or did your doctors not offer any advice or any constructive, um, shed any light, considering that you had lost a child and that you were having children back to back and you were on Prozac? Did they never speak to you about the impact it was going to have on your mental health if you were to go off it or if you were to stay on it?
They didn't. They didn't talk
Yeah, they
about
don't. They don't.
it. Because I'll be very honest with you. I went through three gynecologists over my period of three pregnancies, and the first one was with the top doctors in Lahore, as we always try and go to the best people, and
Yeah,
those were very were experiences whereby I saw that even though I went to the best gynecologists, they did not have the time of day for their patients, and it was very much walk in, walk out, 10 minutes, I will see
huh.
you for 10 minutes situation, which is
Bilkul.
often the case with very famous doctors. They don't have the
Yes,
time for it because they have too many patients. And
bilkul.
maybe a lot of women, for the average person, if they don't have a mental condition, that's okay. But for somebody like me who has a special situation, I needed a doctor who would explain things to me and talk to me. So for my second pregnancy with my daughter, which was a full-term pregnancy, I chose a doctor who was more hands-on. She was a younger female doctor, a female
Yeah,
gynecologist, and she did help me. She knew about my condition, and she said, "Look, for us, the most important thing is your health and the baby's health. And you have to understand that we have to get you through this pregnancy without
yeah,
any major problems, right? And if
yeah,
that means bed rest, you bed rest. If that means that you cannot work, you cannot work. But did that make me more depressed? Yes, because if you are already depressed and then you're on Prozac and then you're put on bed rest, which
yeah.
obviously means that you cannot move, तो फिर आप और depressed हो जाते हैं घर में बैठ के,
Bilkul.
so it adds on. And the people around you don't necessarily always know what that means.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. In fact, that was exactly what my next question is going to be. That what were the people around you like? I mean, Usman, how did you feel seeing Zara go through these pregnancies and struggle with a lack of medical support that really should have been there? I mean, did you try to fill in? Did you try to do your own research? And it's so heartbreaking that you have to do research on your own. You know, I think it's
Absolutely.
awful. I think
Yeah,
it's
it was
really
terrible. It
awful.
was terrible. I mean, like, after, we lost the first baby, so, Zara was very low. Um, and, during the second pregnancy, she was working, up to almost 1 month or almost 2, 3 weeks before I was born. So, what she had to endure, what she had to go through. I tried doing whatever research I could, but that was, no doctor would ever talk to us about these things. And,
Yeah.
I just, sort of learned as we went along, you know, that's all I
And
could possibly do.
that's not the way it's supposed to be. That's so wrong on so many
Absolutely.
levels.
Bilkul.
I
Meher, if
mean,
I
Zara,
may,
the fact that you were working with no medical. Ji bolo, bolo. Sorry, bolo.
I just, throughout my pregnancies, my only and only question was that we spend all these years in school,
Yeah,
preparing for jobs,
bilkul.
preparing our children for college, and preparing for life through different subjects that are taught to us, right? And I
Yeah,
even had subjects like home management in my O levels. I had subjects like food and nutrition. But there's never a subject that teaches you about motherhood or a subject that teaches you about fatherhood, how to be a good father, how to be a father,
yeah,
how to be a mother.
yeah,
And yet, it's one of the most important jobs and roles you will ever partake in your life, and the role that you are least prepared for. And
yeah,
there is no college for it. So you're on a, you're literally on a, you're sitting with all those books, you're sitting on the website, you're talking to Google Ma,
yeah,
and you are like, okay, help me. So I
yeah.
really feel that that's really important, that our curriculum needs to have inclusion of, motherhood and fatherhood as subjects in them, because these
Yeah.
are subjects that nobody can sort of teach you, and you just have to learn literally on the job.
Absolutely. I mean, for a country that's obsessed with marriage and children, you'd think that there'd be more of an open dialogue. But this is something that, in my own personal struggles with motherhood and my own consequential mental issues with it, it was always, you were sort of pushed out to sea and expecting to swim to find your own shore, which is, it's cruel. It's cruel. But I mean, what really sort of strikes me is that you had each other, Zara and Usman, and I'm assuming that both of you had supportive parents and extended family, which would supposedly make a difference in terms of
Uh,
understanding what you guys were going through, suffering. Were they able to help, or were they? I mean, like all families, they just sort of said, "Inko chhod do, inko bas theek ho jayenge," theek ho jayenge. Or were your family
no,
support?
sorry, the question, support, what type of support are you talking about?
I'm talking about emotional support, understanding, trying to help you sort of understand that, what you're going through, we're here for you. What can we do to help you? Coming forth and acknowledging the struggles that both of you are facing in your own respective ways.
No, no,
Because,
I think we did get the best family support that we could have gotten.
yeah,
Everyone was sympathetic, and we're blessed to have loving family and loving friends around us. And no doubt we got support from them. And I think, like I said, it was for the times that we were in, and for whatever it is that we were going through, it was the best that could be given, and we're very grateful for it.
absolutely. Zara, I'd like to ask you, when you had your children, and by now you have two children. How did you find motherhood? And I assume that after their children were born, you didn't go back onto Prozac, or you did?
Well, I was still undiagnosed as far as being bipolar was
Yeah.
concerned, right?
Yeah.
So the bipolar diagnosis came much later. I just knew that I was clinically depressed and I was on Prozac. But once
Yeah.
I had the children, and this is what I didn't realize was a part of my bipolar, was that basically bipolar is a mood disorder, right? So you're swinging between a very high elated, happy mood, and then a very low mood, right? So in
Sure.
my low moods were still obvious to me, and for those I was on Prozac, right? But for my high moods, um, I wasn't really going and seeing my psychologist when I was really
Sure.
high or when I was in a very, very good place, because obviously that's when you feel you're on top of the world and you think you don't need anyone.
Yeah.
And so when I was in those states, in that time frame, even after the children were born, even though I was, I was plunged by, um, postpartum depression. And it was
Yes.
sort of excavated because I had my own depression. And then on top of that, I had double the depression of two pregnancies back to back. And then I had C-sections. So that meant that my body was also having a physical breakdown physically, right? So there was all this healing that had to happen mentally and physically. But still, my mood was swinging because of my bipolar. And
Yeah.
because of the high, I felt at times that, oh, I was fine, which is a normal thing in bipolar. And I thought, okay, I'm fine. I'm actually okay. I've got this and I can leave my medication. And I left it cold turkey without telling my doctor. And when that did happen, I did plunge into very, very, very deep depression and um, anger. And that was really, really hard. And
Yeah.
I had someone, helping me out every second of the day, which he did. He was very hands-on as a father, and
Yeah.
he helped me every single day. At night, he would let me sleep because sleep deprivation, as you know, is so difficult even for normal mothers. Imagine if you're bipolar, it's just worse.
Yeah.
It gets aggravated. So he
Sure.
helped me. So I'm really grateful to him for that.
Absolutely. Scott, how did you feel when Zara decided to stop taking Prozac and go cold turkey? Was that a decision you supported? Did you think that, all right, this is the right thing to do? Or did you have concerns about how it would impact it, especially after having children? What women go through is, I don't think anyone understands fully what happens to us. हम भी नहीं समझ सकते कि हमारे साथ क्या होता है.
To be frank, I didn't know she stopped having it. She just stopped having it. I
Yeah.
mean, it was a decision she made without telling me, without consulting with any doctors. So it was a decision she made, and after that, whatever was happening, it was just really, really tough because I had no clue what to do. I just didn't.
Sure. Absolutely, absolutely. Zara, did you ever get hit by how some moms get hit by maternal guilt? Like you're constantly told कि ये नहीं ठीक करो, इस तरह करो, बच्चे को इस तरह पिलाओ, इस तरह खाना खिलाओ. Did you have to face that as well? And did that sort of act as something that affected you mentally?
Absolutely. I think it's very subcontinental. I think it's all around us. Every single person who walks in has an opinion and tells you exactly what they think you should be doing.
Yeah.
And it's very hard not to get offended.
No doubt about that.
But I think what I tried to do was that initially I remember getting offended by it, but as I got into the second pregnancy and I had Riot, first I had Vaya, then Riot, um, I couldn't cope. And one of my very close friends, she sent me a nurse,
Yeah,
an amazing nurse, as a present for a few weeks. And when this lady arrived, it was like God had sent, like the clouds had departed, and this angel had like
yeah,
arrived in our house. Because here was somebody who was completely non-judgmental and a professional, and she, within a matter of 3 to 4 weeks, taught me everything I really needed to know. And she helped Usman. She taught us how to take care of Raya, and we were first-time parents, and it was very hard.
yes,
And we had parents who were also young parents, grandparents, and working grandparents. And so, we needed that support. So that was like, so God does intervene and help you and send his angels. I believe in that. I believe that there is divine intervention and aapko madad aapki taraf aati hai when you are really seeking it. So,
bilkul.
so we were lucky in that respect at that time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Usman, how did you cope with work, with two small children, with Zara, with her condition still undiagnosed? You still assume that it's depression. You don't know if it's bipolar. How did you cope with all of this?
I didn't cope well at all. When Zara miscarried in 2007, my work, it was very stressful at the time. I broke into these rashes and these spots on my body. I didn't know what they
Yeah,
were. I went to a dermatologist. He misdiagnosed me for having scabies. Then I went to two different doctors and they told me I have psoriasis. And
yeah,
I've had psoriasis now for 11, for actually almost 13 years now. So with all of this happening, with Zara's depression and with having young kids, working and dealing with my stress levels, it was really tough. It was really tough.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure.
And
At what
psoriasis,
point? Sorry, go
I
ahead.
just want to say that even though we're talking about, I mean, psoriasis also has a direct connection to stress,
Yeah,
right? And so it also has a direct connection to your mental state and how you're feeling. So I think
yeah,
all of these things have, they're like a thread. You can thread them all together and understand, how we cope. This is how we cope sometimes, or how we react,
yeah.
how we internalize things, and then how they come out.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Zara, at what stage did you get diagnosed with bipolar 2? Could you sort of tell us about how you got to that point where you were finally diagnosed? Was it something that Usman said to you that, look, I mean, in your video that you released, Usman, you said that you sat Zara down and you said, look, we need to do something, And what was that? Was there a breaking point that you had reached that bus enough is enough? Or was it something that triggered you guys that things are getting out of hand? We really need to know what is going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Zara,
think we were
how?
swimming in a vast ocean of not knowing,
Yeah.
and we were having a very hard time. And I think there were many breaking points, many very hard breaking points in our life, in our relationship. And after one of those, I remember, which was almost a situation of life and death, Usman came to me and he said, he brought me this file. So I've got this file with us. So I'm going to share this file with you. Just want to show Meher the file. So this is a file.
Please
If
do.
you see the date on it, it's from 2014. And it says my name and it says Z file. And this file, Usman made this file, and back then, I can't believe he made this file. He made this huge file. He did all this research and he made this file. And for the longest time, I didn't even look at this file. I'm ashamed to admit, because I was so scared of this file. um, of what it held and what it meant. But Usman will read to you what he wrote in it.
And just before I read what I wrote, I must put some context here. I mean, it was that much of a breaking point because when we were together before marriage, Zara and I never fought. Never. I mean, she'd try and fight with me, but I wouldn't fight with her. When we got married, everyone told us the first 2 years is the toughest and whatnot. So then we started, having a few arguments here and there. But by 2013, 14, with the stresses of life, work, raising 2 children, and also the onset of Zara's bipolar 2 reaching, I think maybe, at least for what I saw, was its peak. Then then they did come that breaking point, both of us.
Yeah.
Once I did my research and made this file, I remember very distinctly giving this file to Zara. And I'm just going to read quickly what I wrote in the inset of the file. So it says, Zara, the contents of this file may scare you, they may upset you, and they may make you feel sleepy and make you feel angry. But please know this much when you read it. 1, we love you and we believe in you. 2, you are the center of our universe. Without you, Raya, Raid, and me are lost. 3, you will get better, inshallah. You just have to believe in you. 4, we are always there for you no matter what. 5, please don't give up on us and on yourself. 6, everything you do, you simply are the best in our eyes. And then I ended it with, you are not and will never be alone in this. We are always in it together. You and your life are important to us and important to the world. So I gave this file to her, and I remember Raya, she took this file from me. She didn't know anything of what was going on. And then she scribbled on it, Mama, it says over here, you might be able to see it in the marker. Mama, you are the best. So this file I gave to her, and it had lots of articles on bipolar 2 and how to deal with bipolar 2. And, so yeah, I mean, that was the beginning.
Yeah. Zara, you mentioned that there was this doctor who said that he or she will see you when you're institutionalized. I mean, to me, that's just, I find that such an inhumane statement to say to someone who's come to you for help. And obviously they just give you that sort of, that's just inhumane. I mean, I don't know who this doctor is, but if they're listening, you're inhuman for saying such a thing to someone. That could not have been easy for you. Did you ever lose hope in finding a solution, an answer at some point? Did you ever think, what is the point of all of this? Why should I even, after hearing this answer from a doctor, a professional, somebody that you've reached out to for help, how did you feel?
I thought maybe I belonged in one. There were many times I felt I might belong in one. There were many times people said those things to me to my face, that is where you're going to end up. And that's where we think you're going to end up, in an institution. But the thing is, Meher, even though I went to the same doctor's clinic, I was being seen by his junior, and he over-medicated me to the point where I could barely talk. And every time I would sit there waiting for my turn, see this person, I would see all the other patients who were institutionalized sitting there.
Yeah.
I would always think there isn't much difference to go over the other side. It doesn't take a lot. It's just a few bad incidents. It's you're just one bad incident away from being institutionalized, and that's why I made a promise. I made a promise to myself, to my children, to my husband, that I'm not going to cross over to the other side, and that we're going to do our best as a family to make sure that I do and we do everything possibly in our power in terms of therapy, in terms of medication, in terms of exercise, in terms of meditation, whatever it is, prayer, whatever it takes to stay on this side of life rather than pass. Because once you pass over into the institutionalized side of life, it's very hard to come back.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Your children are now, I'm sure they're aware of what you, as their mom, has gone through, and I'm certain, Usman, they've seen what you've had to do as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a human, to support Zara in her struggle with bipolar 2. Do they ask you questions? Have you ever spoken to them about mental health? Like Zara, you mentioned that, children today, they use depressed as an adjective. Have you do you converse with your children about these issues? That these are words not to be thrown around so lightly?
Yes, we do. We have from the beginning. I think we waited till they were old enough to talk. Usman did tell them very early on that your mom is not well. That was the basic term that he would use to help them understand. My mom is not well, she needs to sleep. He tried to explain it to them when they were younger. And as they grew up, and now they are 12 and 11, mashallah. So, we have something that we call family circle, which is like 45 minutes of us sitting together and just talking about how we feel and what's going on, and how each person is feeling, or if there's something to resolve or talk about. And within that family circle, we have talked about mental health, mental conditions, what bipolar is, what bipolar 2 is, what depression is.
Sure.
So the children are quite aware and quite sensitive.
Yeah. I mean, Usman, how do you feel about it? Do you feel comfortable speaking to your children about mental illness, considering that there is a rise of it in Pakistan, and there are signs of it that I think our generation is slightly more aware and open to these things than, say, our parents' generation? And I wouldn't blame them, because that's the best that they knew. बस सब ठीक है, बात नहीं करना, अच्छा बस चुप कर जाओ, किसी को बताना नहीं है. Whereas our generation, we see signs, we see things. Would you encourage more men to come forth and tell them that, guys, you need to sort of step up as well and acknowledge these issues that surround children, surround women, surround men as well?
It's a very good point, Matt. You mentioned that our parents did the best that they could, and there's no doubt about that. Hats off to them, kudos to them. But quite frankly, given the resources that we have, the information that we have to be a lot better than them vis-a-vis our children. And we, are blessed to live in such times where we actually can have those conversations with our children, because they're so aware of things now, because they have access to the internet and to countless resources. So the point is, it is absolutely essential.
Yes.
For us men, as fathers, as husbands, to talk about this and to not follow our fathers and their forefathers. कि बस ठीक हो जाएगा, बस ये कर लो तो ठीक हो जाएगा. That's not good enough. And if we do that, then we're really failing our children and our partners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Kaarvan, for example, we work with a lot of rural women, and aksar, it's happened far too many times for comfort now. We'll hear about these cases कि जी फलानी औरत थी, उसको जिन चढ़ गया है, फलानी औरत को पीर के पास ले गए हैं. And it's a struggle, because those varying generations come in. You have the older generation just saying, हाँ बस ठीक है, दम करा लो, कुछ नहीं होगा, दवाई दे दो. Whereas our generation, when we hear these stories, we want to sort of be like, नहीं, जिन नहीं है, आप इसको अस्पताल ले जाएं, आप इसका इलाज कराएं, आप इसको डॉक्टर के पास ले जाएं. But it has awareness has to come about, and I think what you, Zara, have done, what you've done is incredible because you've owned it. I don't think you realize how powerful this step is. क्योंकि अक्सर औरतों को भी यही होता है कि खुद ही वो कहती हैं कि जी रात को मुझे मैं बाहर जाती हूँ पानी के लिए, गांव वगैरह में पानी लेके जाती तो मुझे जिन आ जाता है. और urban areas maybe you'll hear about women, I mean friends, you know, Lahore is so small, for example, I'm sure we know everyone, friends you hear about, and you see those signs in them, and you're like, dude, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, of course. And you're like, nay, let's have, it's about acknowledging that, you know what, I'm not okay. And that's okay too. And I think that's such a huge step to acknowledge it, to own it in your entirety. I mean,
And
Usman,
also,
how did you
to
feel when
seek
Zara
help.
decided to talk about this?
I think seeking help for it is very important. I think one of the most important things that has helped me get to this point has been therapy. I've been in therapy with a very good therapist. I've been going to a very good psychiatrist now for a good 4 or 5 years. And consistently, I have been going, which means every week I see these people for the last 4 years, 5 years. And that has slowly, along with other practice and structure exercises, has brought me to the point where I am now in a place where I can be this person that I am today, with the support of my family, with the help of these people. So I think therapy is very important. Even when I went abroad, for example, I went to the UK for holiday with Usman and the kids. I went to a UK support group for bipolar. And I was so surprised by this group because I went and there were more than 100 people in this support group, and all age groups, all income brackets, and they welcomed me. Somebody who was just a visitor, and they said, "Please come. And yes, if you're bipolar, you may join." And I spent like a meeting with them, and then now I'm in touch with them. I'm on doing the online sessions with them. But for example, when my therapist tried to do a support group in Lahore, he didn't get the response that he thought he would get, even though he has many bipolar patients. So he only got 3 people out of a group of like many people who actually came for a support group. Of course, that support group was still very helpful to me and the people who were there. But, I was just comparing it to the group of 100 and the group of 3, you know. But somewhere. Everything has to start somewhere. And I think that agar hum, if we can start with if we can start with awareness, if we can go into therapy, if we can, start with that only, itna se hum shuru kar lein, so at least we can begin that journey.
Absolutely.
Sorry, just to add to what she said, I'm also able to talk about all of this because of therapy. When Zara, went through the initial phase and she was coming out of it and she was a bit stronger, she then said, recognize, Usman, now you need it. Now you need it because you have dealt with a lot and you have internalized most of it. And you need to talk about things. You need to be able to express yourself. So therapy has helped me tremendously, and it's come and it's given me the ability to be articulate about being a caregiver. And aside from a bipolar group, there should be a caregiver support group as well.
Of course,
that's very important, because giving for those people who are brave enough, because we read countless articles and see different various reports and videos of bipolar 2 couples, and the startling or not the shocking sort of statistic is that those marriages end up in divorce and separation, obviously because the spouse can't take it, whichever spouse is spouse is having to deal with it. So the caregivers are equally, if not more important than the patients themselves. because it's the caregivers who if their antenna are up, will be alert to any issues and any sort of triggers that happen to their partners.
Bilkul, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And again, that's a very important role of the caretaker, the caregiver.
Yes.
That's just dismissed so easily. There's zero acknowledgement
Yes.
of that.
Bilkul.
And there are these cookie cutter roles that you're supposed to fall into, husband, father, son, brother, walking, talking ATM, and that's it. And you're just like, well, no, hang on a second. There's a lot more that I do mentally, emotionally, and that's not it, right?
Yes.
There's no acknowledgement. So what I'd like to ask you guys, this is my final question, and then the floor is all yours. This was I cannot emphasize this enough. This was such a huge step that you guys have taken about speaking about this publicly. Where would you like to take it? What is your goal? I mean, Zara, I know you've set up a platform, Pakistan's first platform, celebrating curvy women and curvy girls, body positivity, and mental health. And I think that's remarkable because there's nothing like that in Pakistan. And this is a country that I often say we have national PTSD. Everyone is suffering from it from some form or the other. At least PTSD to har kisi ko hai hi hai. Where would you like to do? Where do you see taking, this platform forward? What would you like to do with it? Would you like to encourage more people to come forward and speak to you? Do you want more people to share their stories? And like you, I mean, you are a real life hero. Acknowledge and own their truth. Embrace themselves in their entirety. Is that what you would like to see?
Absolutely. I think, Meher, that is the dream. I think since I was very young, for me, your personal story is the most important story.
Yeah.
I think because it's the story of your soul, it's the story of your truth. And every person, every human being has that truth, no matter where they are from, which country they are from, whatever nationality they have. So that's why the platform is all about positivity and inclusion and diversity.
Sure.
Because it celebrates that. It says that, you know what, your story is so important that your story deserves to be heard, which is why I started Divane Zara, Your Story, Aapki Kahani, and which is every Monday. I started with my own story. And when I started telling my story, I said my story is incomplete without Usman because he is a part of the story, right? So it can't be a one-sided story. The story has to have the full story and not a one-sided story. So I would love for more people to come forward with their stories and let it be a global platform where people come and feel safe in a safe space and talk about their story. And incidentally, I have had people in just this week get in touch with me from different parts of the world, and they would share their stories. And that is like for me, that is enough. I think for me that's the best part, and everything else I hope flows and grows from it. So I'm very grateful. I'm very, very grateful and very, very happy to be here. And thank you so much for having us.
Not at all, not at all. Usman, I hope you take this forward too. Like you said, you pinpointed that a group for caretakers and caregivers should definitely be the support group. I think what you've done is also phenomenal because, our men are meant to be real life Maula Jats, and that's about it. And you've sort of taken that and said, yes, but there's also another side to that Maula Jatness, and let's talk about it. I really hope you continue it.
I was very lucky that Zara asked me to do that, and I would be more than happy to see other people, other men who are in similar position to me, to be able to speak about it. Because it's very important, and I think it is the most overlooked part of mental illness, of the role of the caregiver. And, I sincerely hope that, my speaking will enable others to be able to speak on this as well and share their experiences, because, I mean, those experiences are very, very important in saving a relationship.
So I think,
Oh, yeah. Sitting well. Go ahead.
no, but I think we हम जो बात करते थे about, it's just about creating awareness. That is one of our basic goals. We're creating a space where people can come and tell their stories, and also creating a safe space where people feel free to go to therapy, and also to, encourage support groups and encourage dialogue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're nearing the end of the session now. So once again, Zara, Usman, thank you so very much for agreeing to do this. I'm in total awe of you guys, even more so now. Thank you so much. You've done a great service to the country, to Pakistanis, and for all those who have a mental illness and those who are looking after those who.
Thank you. It's been a privilege.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Meher.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Good night.
Take care.
Speak
Good
soon.
night.
Bye-bye.
Hafiz.